Well, Prabhus, I'm not really, let us say I've had better days. And I'm going to try to make it through class. We'll see how that goes. You want to sit on my lap, Dvijamani? I'm very fond of you, but... Yeah, well, I apologize if I'm a little slow. Or slower than usual. And we'll see how far we make it. Oh, Pavamana. I'm a little embarrassed for my godbrother. Pavamana can sing, he can talk, and he's a fantastic cook. Pavamana has a number of so many good qualities. Huh? It's true. The wealth of a temple is the quality of the devotees. And New Govardhan is a very wealthy temple. It's true. Jayararam Madhava Kunda Bihari Jayararam Madhava Kunda Bihari Upichana Balaba Dirivanadari. Not too slow, Ram. Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana. Not too slow. Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana. Jamun Tiravanatadi. Jamun Tiravanatadi. Jayararam Madhava Kunda Bihari Gopijana Balaba Jivanadari Dasoranandana Brajajanarandana. Chamunti Ramanatari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare Oh Hare Krishna Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Rama Hare Rama Jai Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padiba Jakacharya Stithishisham and His Divine Grace Abhacharan Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Jagaguru Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Kota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Shri Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Goa Bhakta Brindaki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Vrindavan Dham Ki Mathura Dham Ki Dwarka Dham Ki Navati Dham Ki Jagannathpuri Dham Ki Chamuna Ganga Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Now, what verse do they have on the board? Huh? 26. Yeah, that's the natural one to choose. The only thing is that it doesn't have a purport. So, I'm trying to get my technology to work with me. So we want to chant a verse with a purport. So we're 7th chapter. Sorry to be talking to myself, but I'm the only one who understands me. So we're going to chant 28. So what do we do about that? How many devotees have devices? Okay, why don't you gather around each other? Any of the ladies, what do we do about that? You got them? Hey, fantastical. So we're on Canto 7, Chapter 11. Anyone know the title of this chapter? No, we've moved on. This is perfect society. It's all right. The Bhagavatam's eternal and ever-present, so... Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. It's very nice if we all say it at the same speed. It makes a nice vibration. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Thank you. No, what is it? What am I looking for, Judith? in the age of Kali, the Bhagavatam. Krishna Swadama Upagate Dhammaganari Bisaha Kalanasat Shammesha Purana Konado Dada Narayana Namaskritchan Naram Chaivam Narotama Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat. The Bhagavatam is brilliant as the sun. It has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna, accompanied with knowledge, religion, etc. Persons who have lost their vision through the dense darkness of Kali Yuga shall get light out of this Purana. Before beginning our study of Srimad Bhagavatam, one should first offer respects to the personality of God, Narayan, the Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, the goddess of learning mother, Saraswati, not too so close. And what is the last? And my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. Thank you. My brain is a little dinged, so more than usual. Okay. Santusta luluba. Yeah, we'll get it. Daksha dharma gya priya satya vak aparmata suchi snigda patim tva. Yeah, it's merged with the other next word. Apatitam bhajet santosta lolupadaksha dharmagya priya satyavak aparmata suchi snigda patim tvapatitam bhajet santushta lolupadaksha dharmagya priya satyavak aparamata suchi snigda patim tvapatitam bhajet santushta lolupadaksha dharmagya priya satyavak aparamata suchi snigda patim tvapatitam bhajet. Aparamata santushta lolupadaksha dharmagya satyavak aparamata suchi snigda santushta lolupadaksha dharmagya priya satyavak aparamata suchi snigda patim tvapatitam bhajet. Santushta lolupadaksha dharmagya priya satyavak aparamata suchi snigda patim tvapatitam bhajet. Vaishnavis. Santushta lolupadaksha dharmagya priya satyavak Aparmata suchi snigdha patim tvapatitam bhajet santushta lulupadaksha dharmagya priya satyavak aparmata suchi snigdha patim tvapatitam bhajet santushta, always satisfied. Alolupa, without being greedy. Daksha, very expert in serving. Dharmagya, fully conversant with religious principles. Priya, pleasing. Satya, truthful. Vak, in speaking. Aparmata, attentive in service to her husband. Suchi, always clean and pure. Snigdha, affectionate. Patim, the husband. Tu, but. Apetitam, who is not fallen. Bhajet, should worship. Translation. A chaste woman should not be greedy, but satisfied in all circumstances. She must be very expert in handling household affairs and should be fully conversant with religious principles. She should speak pleasingly and truthfully and should be very careful and always clean and pure. Thus, a chaste woman should be engaged with affection in the service of a husband who is not fallen. I find it interesting that the husbands usually remember this verse, but they don't remember all the verses about the duty of a husband. So there it is. Don't worry, ladies. There's also similar injunctions. And the Bhagavatam also includes who's not fallen. And we'll talk about a little bit what that means, who's not fallen. It doesn't mean, big bank balance, prestigious position, like that. That's not what. Okay, translation. Oh, you just did the translation? Yes. Yeah, okay. And you guys repeated? And I said and you repeated? Okay, we'll do that, because that's how Prabhupada did it. A chaste woman should not be greedy, but satisfied in all circumstances. She must be very expert in handling household affairs and should be fully conversant with religious principles. She should speak pleasingly and truthfully and should be very careful and always clean and pure. Thus, a chaste woman should engage with affection in the service of a husband who is not fallen. Purport. According to the injunction of Yajnavalkya, an authority on religious principles, Asude sampriksho hi mahapataka dushita. One is considered contaminated by the reaction of great sinful activities when one is not purified according to the methods of the Dasa Vida Sanskara. These are the standard sanskars, before conception, birth, when you go to school, when you get married. There's different samskaras before you have a kid, and it keeps one purified and focused. So that's the traditional Vedic Brahminical system. In the Bhagavad Gita, however, the Lord says, Nama duskrinito mudha prapadyante naradama. Those miscreants who do not surrender unto me are the lowest of mankind. The word Naradama means non-devotee, also means lowest of mankind. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also said, Ye bhaja se bada abhaktahina chara. Anyone who is a devotee is sinless. One is very concerned about sins. That's how to counteract, how to game the system. I'm acting, there's sinful activities, how do I counter them? What is the prayaschita? And one's just calculating how to, like parallel bars, how to balance yourself on that. But anyway, we might as well say it now. But there's a verse in Bhagavad Gita, actually many verses, they counter this. And it's in the 18th chapter, after Krishna's gone through and described so many, you counteract this and you act like this, and here's the piety, and there's divine and demonic natures, the whole thing's explained, right? But what do they call it? The lowest common denominator in math. That, like, I can have 8 times 8, I can have 32/64. Or I can reduce that to, 16 32nds. I can reduce that, a little high math here, from 8/16. I can reduce that to 4/8. I can reduce that to 2/4. But I finally get to 1/2, which is the clearest, simplest, essential expression. You with me? Yeah. You can't become more focused and clear than 1/2. I tell you, 64, what is it? Yeah, you got to think about that one for a minute. So Krishna, all the different dharmas and jagas and prayaschittas, and the Vedas just overwhelmed with them. But it concludes, Sarva dharma parityaja mamikam saranam praja aham tam sava papebhyo moksha shami masuchaha. That forget it, all that gaming the system. Just become my devotee. We have the example of what's a good example from Krishna Leela, and to give a little shout out for the ladies, because, they've been putting quite a high standard here. So there were who knows, a pastime, and it involves Krishna and Balaram being hungry. That's a big hint. Right. The wives of the Brahmins. What, did Balaram go? The boys went. And the boys went, and they baked some food. And the Brahmin said, can't you see we're busy here? Om Shanti, Shanti, Swaha. And I'm not diminishing that at all, don't get me wrong. But they wouldn't give. So what did they do? They went to the simple wives, so-called simple. Again, the Brahmins are actually the complicated ones, missing the point. So the immediately, Krishna's hungry, Balaram's hungry, we can take care of that. Did they take from the offering? No, they didn't take from the husband's offering. So the essence of the whole thing is pure love of Krishna. So Prabhupada's explaining that here. But we're going to push on. One who is not a devotee, however, is the most fallen and condemned. It is recommended, therefore, that a chaste wife not associate with a fallen husband. A fallen husband, Prabhupada makes it clear, is one who is addicted to the 4 principles of sinful activities, namely illicit sex, meeting, gambling, and intoxication. Although Prabhupada points out we shouldn't do that. It's exploitative. The husband is supposed to help guide the wife on the path back to Godhead. What is it? One should not become a father, a husband, a teacher, a parent, unless one can delivers one's charge from the cycle of birth and death. So you're not qualified to be a husband unless you can set an example. Acharya, what is the root word of the word acharya? Hey, give somebody else a chance. This is our perennial argument. So, acharya, one who teaches by example is an acharya. You have to teach by an example. I remember people used to tell me, don't do as I do, do as I say. And I remember thinking, well, if it's so worthful advice, why don't you follow it? So the point is, well, I'm thinking of a number of things. But Prabhupada says it. It's not that a chaste woman should be a slave, like a slave of her, while her husband is a Naradama, the lowest of men. Although, that's what got me off. The Prabhupada's sister's husband was a drunkard. I heard Prabhupada say this. He mentions it a number of times. And even Prabhupada with his wife would go over to their house, and the husband wouldn't be there. He'd be at a bar or something. He'd be out drinking. And she would make excuses to keep his reputation. He'd say that he was, he's, away on business, or he's something, some excuse, And she was so devoted. I don't want to go too afield. She was so devoted. Her job, when they were children, they would fly kites. In those days, kite flying was a big deal in India. And her job was to sit by the side of the road and pray that her kite would take off. And Prabhupada would fly the kite. Prabhupada says it. They were a team. One made sure one was running to get the kite, and she was praying, please, Krishna, fly our kite. So she was a great devotee. But she was so devoted to her husband that she converted him. Prabhupada said she was a devotee of Krishna, and her husband became a devotee of her. So sometimes a good wife can change a husband. But if the husband stays fallen, you have to, just to make sure that, as Prabhupada says, one's not a slave to be exploited. Well, Prabhupada really doubles down. Giving up the association of her husband does not mean, however, that the woman should marry again and thus indulge in prostitution. If a chaste woman unfortunately marries a husband who has fallen, she should live separately from him, like a widow dressed in white. Similarly, a husband can separate himself from a woman who is not chaste according to the descriptions of Shastra. So the conclusion is that a husband should be a pure Vaishnava, and that a wife should be a chaste wife with all the symptoms described in this regard. Then both of them will be happy and make spiritual progress in Krishna consciousness. Om Gana Tamarandasya Gana Gana Salakaya Jakshur Shumilitan Gina Tasmare Shri Gurave Namaha. So if each of these, proper husband, proper brahmachari, proper sannyasi, all the 4 varnas and all the 4 ashrams are being described in this, will be described in this chapter. And once again, what's the title of the chapter? Other than Dravida? Who knows? All right then, see, your chance will come. What is it?
The perfect society.
The perfect society, 4 social classes, and the next chapter is the 4 spiritual. So the point is, and devotees shy away from this quite often. I remember ISKCON's constitution is in its 3rd round of GBC review, and it's being improved and honed. And the first one, when it talked about Varnashrama, it was more or less apologist. Yeah, it was apologizing. Oh, well, it doesn't mean this, and it doesn't mean that, and don't worry, it doesn't mean, you know, and if you're a devotee, you're above it. And devotees tend to, many devotees, tend to run away from any description of Varnashram Dharma. Now let me ask you a question. Are things running smoothly in society nowadays? What do you think? It's just Radhanath Maharaj was invited to speak before the directors of the Bank of England. I've got pictures of it. And, you know, it's a oak-paneled leather, you know, wallpaper, everything's brass. I mean, they've been meeting in that room for 300 years, and not a new idea. But so he was invited to speak. And he made the point, he said, I'm speaking before you, the directors of the Worldwide Bank of England. And I don't even have a bank account. So in fact, I don't even have any pockets. You know, he just had a charter, and, you know. And he said, you know, you measure the success of a nation. They've got that, what is it, the G9 or the G7 or a G7. They're the top 9 what is it, GPS? No, that's a GPN. GPN is how they measure the success of a nation, materialists. GPN means GNP. It's gross national product. It means how many, they call it durable goods. That means things that last longer than 3 years. Washing machines, cars, airplanes, computers. So how many durable goods, those that last longer than 3 years, that you pump out, that's how they rate a successful nation. Now, Radhanath Maharaj did a little research, and you've got the G7, the top nations pumping out all this stuff, and they're considered the most successful. Now, interestingly enough, they're also the leaders of all the nations in the world in the signs of a society under stress. What shows that a society is under stress? Well, the murder rate, drug addiction, divorce rate, incarceration. Those are all symptoms of a diseased society. And lo and behold, the G7 are also the leaders in these. So is that a successful society? And Radhanath Maharaj said that they should be, instead of measuring GNP, gross national product, you need to be measuring GNH, gross national happiness. That's what you got to measure, because what's the goal of the whole thing? So the point is that society is distressed, and it's getting worse. There's no question about it. So the devotees sometimes jump on the back of a parade to nowhere. I'll say that again. Jumping on the back of a parade to nowhere. Well, the Vedas, the Varnas, the ashrams, It's irrelevant, it's exploitative, it's archaic. Well, what do you got, buddy? How successful is your society? And rather we find, Prabhupada did not back off from this point. I mean, Prabhupada was, when Prabhupada said, if they knew what I was saying, they would put me back on the boat, back to India. So the world is crying. And if they're honest, and I tell you, a lot of people, smart people, are looking for alternative societies. I mean, forget moving to Canada or, moving out on a commune. They're designing cities to be smaller. They're designing cities to be walkable. They're designing neighborhoods where people have to mix, where no longer you've got the rich over here and the poor over here. I mean, this is not working. And if we don't, it doesn't mean you beat somebody over the head that you're a Sudra. The challenge is how to be presented intelligently. No question about it. But to deny as anything in the Vedas, it's true. That's what I wanted to read. I knew there was something else, and that I inserted in here. Hold on a sec. Oh, help me out here, because my strength is not going to last that long. Where is it? Work with me, Prabhus. It's from the Bhagavad Gita. Did I not bring? Here we go. Now, it's in the 3rd chapter. I've forgotten the verse, but we may argue. We're like an old married couple. There's deep, deep respect and affection. We just bicker sometimes. So, Krishna says in the 3rd chapter, Bhagavad Gita, Dravida Prabhu will get us the verse. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures, this is Lord Brahma, sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifice for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, be thou happy by this yaga, sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation. The point is, creation is a giant machine. I mean, there's a lot we can say on this, but it's a giant. It's the giant wheel of dharma, and it's turning by jaga. It's turning, and the reason the center, if just like a wheel has a hub. So what makes society turn, makes the world turn, so that people are happy and satisfied, is service to Vishnu. There's a recognition that this whole thing, what happens if you try to put a square peg in a round hole? Or I'll give you another example. My previous landlord, Mr. Lowe, we used to call him Mr. Slow. My kids came up with that name for him. And we were stopped at a red light on Hornblende. There's a restaurant there that serves bones and feathers, as they all do. And it's famous for its breakfasts. So we're stopped there at the red light, and we see Mr. Lowe struggling with the door to get in. He's pulling, he's tugging, he's looking. You can see there's people inside. It's open. People are sitting in there, shoveling down their bones and feathers, and he's wondering. And my daughter figured it out. She leaned out the window and said, "Push, Mr. Lowe, push." Because he was pulling, but the door was pushed. As soon as he pushed, no problem. He was right inside. And people are pushing in a world where they're meant to pull. They're meant this, and well, I don't want to. they're pushing everything's meant for me. Everything's meant for my satisfaction. The way the Vedic culture works is it's the grease that makes all the cogs and gears, all the different social orders and all the fit together is humility. They all know I'm a servant. I am not the center of things. Krishna's the center of things. And I have to do my duty according to where I'm put in life. And they're not envious. Hey, I did something in a previous life, so I'm born in this life. Now I've got to act piously, so eventually I go back to Godhead. They know what the goal is. Prabhupada said even when he was a young man, you didn't leave anything on the road. You didn't look both ways and didn't see anybody and pocketed. You knew that Krishna's watching. The Devas are watching. Yamaraja's watching. And I'm going to have to pay for it. It's not free money. You know? And it's a bad activity. It's going to come back and bite me in my next life. There used to be a cartoonist named Rube Goldberg, and he used to make these complicated drawings. And here's a classic: that a man throws a boot out of a cat at a cat. The cat's on the fence making a bunch of noise. Throws a boot at it, like me throwing a boot at my neighbors. And the cat jumps, and it frightens a dog who barks. And when the dog barks, you know, it startles the milkman who drops his milk. And it's a whole thing that goes all the way around. He's looking this way at all this chaos happening. And it all interconnects and ultimately hooks onto a stick with a boot and kicks him in the rear end. Oh, there's the other one. The guy is sitting in a chair. And like Stonehenge, there's all these huge stones in a circle. Now, if you've got big stones in a circle, you ever line up dominoes like this? And the guy's sitting here, he's looking this way, and he pushes that stone. Boom, 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 boom. It goes all around the stone and crushes him. So in the Vedic culture, they know I do this, and it's going to come back and bite me. And I'm active, but I'm not going to become happy trying to satisfy my mind or my senses or my wife or this or that. It doesn't work that way. And because one knows I'm a small, insignificant jiva, and I'm a stranger in a strange land. I don't belong here. This place is stacked against me. And my real goal is to go back home, back to Godhead. So with that vision, one is humble. And one takes it, it's Krishna's divine mercy that I'm in this position, and I should do my duty. And the grease that turns the wheels of dharma, everyone performing jaga for the satisfaction of Krishna, everyone following their ashram, everybody thinks they're a servant. The higher up you go, you know, if one's measuring, well, I'm a Brahmin. Well, I'm a Kshatriya. There's less and less. Prabhupada says on the average, if you've got, let's pick an easy number. If you've got 1,000 Sudras, you're going to get 100 Vaishyas. If you've got 100 Vaishyas, you're going to get 10 Kshatriyas. And if you've got 10 Kshatriyas, you've got 1 Brahmin. So in one sense, there's a hierarchy. But each is thinking, I'm a servant of the other castes. The Sudra, he thinks he's working for somebody. He's doing some carpentry or whatever he's doing. He's a servant. Now the Vaishya, what is he thinking? He's thinking he's got to produce. He's got to produce grains and ghee, and they're feeding society. He's a servant. What is the Kshatriya thinking? Prabhupada gives the example of Maharaj Sibi. Maharaj Sibi was a devout Kshatriya. The Kshatriya feels like the father. His duty is to protect the children. They're his children. like children. We're not talking about, paternalistic. But in the pure sense, there's a love of the people, They'd go out to battle first, When there was a war, all the citizens come in the old medieval times, they come into the castle, and the king is supposed to protect them. He's got his army, and he goes out the gate, and he fights. He doesn't sit in a bunker in Washington, push a, what is it? What are those things called? I've lost some words. What is it? Drone. He doesn't sit in a bunker in D.C. Or they're most of them out in Arizona and send a drone onto somebody's head. No, a Kshatriya went on. And you won, even up into the medieval times, you won the battle if you killed the king. As soon as the king was dead, everybody stopped. So my point is, the Kshatriya had a very important role. And the Brahmin, he's giving knowledge, he's giving guidance. And who of the Sudras, of the Vaishyas, of the Kshatriyas, of the Brahmins, who was living the most renounced, austere life? Okay. The Brahmins. Oh, you're the head of society. And when the Brahmins became exploitative, the whole Vedic society collapsed. Well, when everyone knew that they were a servant in the service of Krishna and had that humble attitude, then the whole thing works. It's the grease that makes it turn. Oh, I didn't finish about Maharaj Sibi, so we'll end there. So Maharaj Sibi was such a Kshatriya. And to test him, the Indra and Agni became a pigeon and a hawk. And the pigeon, during the Dabar, they call it, when the Kshatriya king is, holding court and settling this and settling that. And all of a sudden, this pigeon, Agni turned into a pigeon, landed on the king's lap. Right after it comes the hawk, Indra's the hawk, and says, hey, that's my quota. The pigeon says, give me shelter, I've taken shelter, you protect me from this hawk. So the hawk shows up, and the hawk, what is their natural food? Their natural food is, like a lion, kills deer. So he said, the Indra's the hawk, hand over my quota. Give me my pigeon. And the pigeon said, but I took shelter. So Maharaj Sibi, what can I do? He's taken shelter from me. So how do we get out of this? And the hawk said, I want your flesh in the weight of that pigeon. You give me your flesh. And the king is significant in society. The pigeon's not much. No offense to pigeons. But he'd taken shelter. Maharaj Sibi said, no, I can't give him back. And he was prepared to cut off his own flesh to the weight of the pigeon. And then Indra turned back, the pigeon turned back into Indra, and the hawk turned back, and they blessed Maharaj Sibi. But that's a Kshatriya. So, if we deny presenting the Varna and Ashram, because, what? It's classful society and so many things, and higher and lower. This is democracy, which Prabhupada called. Anyone other than Dravida? No Prabhupada's take, little transformation of democracy. Balaram, demon crazy. And again, you're just biased, No, numbers don't lie. Look at the signs of stress in society, and they're only increasing. So our simple point is everything in the Vedas is true and is merciful. Prabhupada, when he came to America, he had that little flyer printed up that said, India's message of peace and goodwill. It was an introduction to the Bhagavatam. This is the message of peace and goodwill. And if we dicker around with it or don't present this or that, well, people won't understand. That's our job, is to help them understand. But it's not our job to sweep it under the rug. So the Vedas present, this is a gloss on the chapter, perfect society. The Vedas know how to present perfect society. Something fall off? That's a nice sign. It's probably a sign that I should end class. So we'll end there. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. All glories to Prabhupada.